This is Asphalt Hillclimb. Added in 2020, it quickly became one of BeamNG's most technical and competitive time trials. For years, players from around the world fought for every tenth, every hundredths, and sometimes even every thousandth of a second. New setups replaced old ones. Revolutionary strategies became outdated almost overnight, and runs that once looked unbeatable were left behind time and time again. This is the story of the players who transformed a simple hill climb into a relentless race for perfection. And this is the speedrunning history of Asphalt Hillclimb. Welcome to Utah, home to giant open spaces, countless shortcuts, and a lot of steel bushes. This is one of the few maps in the game where skips can be found by simply drawing a straight line between 2 points. However, not every challenge offers such freedom. Some force players down a single road, just a start, a handful of checkpoints, and a finish with no deviations. Among many crawls and scenarios, Asphalt Hillclimb stands out as a pure tarmac race on a map that is praised for its off-road. To understand why it became so popular, we first need to look at the track itself. This is a very technical trial. Half of it is practically a straight line, but it's the second half where most people fail. 30 seconds, 3 back-to-back corners. Each demands a unique approach. An S-shaped corner that punishes overconfidence, a tight uphill hairpin that demands perfect braking, and finally a wide shrinking hairpin with a reverse camber. Combined, this track can literally be split into 30 seconds of false security, followed by 30 seconds of trial by fire. Added as part of a major winter release at the end of 2019, Asphalt Hillclimb's speedrunning history began a few months later, with a player by the name of Waterglue and his signature yellow Hirochi Sunburst. This first ever run didn't have anything fancy. There were no tuning optimizations or even basic weight reduction. Just a sunburst, nitros, and no muffler. And on February 11, 2020, Waterglue would set the very first record, 47.7 seconds. With this, the floodgates were opened, and the optimization battle began. It took the community just 2 weeks to shave 4.5 seconds of the original record. The first step was simple: remove everything that wasn't nailed down. More than 100 kilograms or about 300 pounds in freedom units disappeared from the Sunburst, and with it, more than 2 seconds from the record. From there came the usual optimizations. Small cut through the dirt at the start and smoother lines through the corners. But one problem remained: the tight hairpin. The Sunburst brakes simply couldn't keep up. Runners could nail the entry only for the car to push wide through the corner and ruin the exit. At the end, one record was simply better than the rest: a 43.2 second run, performed by Marcoon. While this time might already sound crazy, this was only the beginning. In the next 2 years, time would be dropped by another 4 seconds. The first major breakthrough came 10 months later with SVT Venik and a very unusual vehicle choice, the Hirochi SBR4. A quick look at it doesn't reveal anything special, just a basic SBR4 hill climb setup. This was the goal: to hide the extent of weight reduction and overall tuning. In reality, this was a heavily modified Hirochi SBR4 with even lights missing to save precious kilos. This choice surprised many players. At the time, the Sunburst was the king of many trials, including Asphalt Hillclimb. It was predictable, balanced, and easy to drive. The SBR4 was the opposite: more powerful but notorious for oversteer and low ground clearance. Yet, it had something the Sunburst desperately lacked: brakes. The hairpin that caused so many problems for the runners was now manageable, if not easy. And combined with the stronger engine, the SBR4 pushed the record down to 41.7 seconds, a massive improvement of nearly a second and a half. After the arrival of the SBR4, optimization was pushed to a whole different level. Runners removed everything they could. Doors, lights, exhausts, anything that wasn't absolutely necessary. But despite all of this, players knew the route was still hiding time. And one of the problems was the finish. The final checkpoint sits immediately after the last white left-hand corner. To get a clean finish, drivers often had to sacrifice speed and carefully position the car. It wasn't much, but it cost precious hundreds. Then one runner stumbled upon a solution. ThomVak, due to horrible line through the last corner, decided to salvage the run by aiming for the outside part of the checkpoint. Quick thinking uncovered one of BeamNG's most notable features. Finish triggers are surprisingly forgiving. By precisely positioning the car beforehand and taking a much wider line, it's pretty consistent, and what's even more important, a bit faster. The gain is small, but with the route being this optimized, this is the difference between a world record and just another reset. His time of 40.5 seconds would survive for more than 10 months, before eventually falling to a runner with something many others lacked: experience. This was Punky Tank, also known as Lucas Punk, a runner with years of real-world experience in both tuning and racing.
Here it is, here it is, here it is.
Here's the move.
Here it is.
And
wow.
Lucas Pack drives into the lead, and look at him go!
And he would go on to put both to good use. It took Lucas more than 20 different tuning setups to find the perfect balance between speed and control. But the setup was only half of the equation. The rest came from behind the wheel. Better braking, cleaner corner exits, and smoother racing lines. He even ignored ThomVak's finish strategy entirely. Yet in early 2022, he pushed the record down to 40.2 seconds, 3/10 faster than the run many believe was already near its limit. After a run like this, it was only a matter of time before someone combined clean driving with all the route's little optimizations. And 2 months and 22 days later, it happened. A runner by the name of Kimurasa managed to beat the previous record by 11 hundredths. While his run was on point and even faster than the previous one, Kimurasa made a mistake at the end of the run, which almost cost him the world record. There was a reason why the runners either slowed down or approached the finish from the outside. At the speeds the SBR4 carried out of the final corner, the car barely had enough time to stabilize before crossing the line. Kimurasa tried to pull the car inside the finish, but instead crashed into the railing. Finish still counted, but barely. While the runner succeeded in getting a top place, he wasn't done. 2 days later, he returned. This time with a cleaner run and every major optimization combined into one package. Slight off-road cuts were possible, an outside finish, and most importantly, no mistakes. 39.9 seconds. The first sub-40 record in the history of Asphalt Hillclimb, and the first truly major breakthrough for the route. Untouchable record, at least until something new is discovered. And this shift was right around the corner. On June 15th, 2022, one update changed Asphalt Hillclimb forever. 0.25. Spark your passion. It introduced the JATO Scintilla, a supercar with 2500 horsepower that many players predicted would dominate nearly every tarmac speedrun in the game. And they were right. 7 months after Kimurasa's breakthrough, Fake decided to test the new beast on Asphalt Hillclimb. 30 minutes of tuning and 5 finished runs. That's all it took to beat the SBR4 by half a second. But it wasn't as easy as it looked. The Scintilla, while better than the SBR4 in almost everything, had 2 major downsides. It was too powerful and even more oversteery than the SBR4. This led to Fake playing extremely safe, slowing down significantly even for the smallest of corners. The next 5 months would become some of the most competitive in the history of the route. with two players fighting tooth and nail for the world record. Hyku, a runner who had already conquered a large portion of the BeamNG speedrunning scene, decided to take on Asphalt Hillclimb. And if anyone was going to challenge ThomVak, it would be another veteran with years of experience behind the wheel. Hyku approached the Scintilla in a different manner. This route was short and tricky in the second half. There was simply no space for the Scintilla to get to the top speed. Instead, Hyku decided to focus on control and even enabled electronic stability control. In most cases, ESC was considered a disadvantage since it slightly reduced overall speed. But since Asphalt Hillclimb was a very short and corner-heavy trial, this was not an issue. The added stability, however, helped control the car through several awkward transitions caused by its extremely low ground clearance. The run itself was clean, however, right at the finish, Hyku hesitated. For a split second, the runner couldn't decide between aiming for the center of the checkpoint or taking a more aggressive outside line. That moment of indecision was enough to send the car into the barrier and cost roughly a tenth of a second. But it didn't matter. On February 11th, 2023, Hyku set a new world record of 39.3 seconds, beating ThomVak's time by 500ths and officially beginning one of the fiercest rivalries the route had ever seen. It took ThomVak only 16 days to respawn. While Hyku focused on stability and control, ThomVak doubled down on precision. Every corner in his run looked straight out of a textbook. Perfect turn-in, clean apex and a smooth exit. He ignored electronic stability control entirely and even abandoned the outside finish strategy, instead trusting his driving skills. This gamble paid off, and on February 27th, 2023, ThomVak set a new record of 39.1 seconds, 2/10 faster than Hyku. Instead of trying to copy ThomVak's precision, Hyku refined their own approach. The goal was simple: remove every unnecessary mistake. Last time a crash at the end had cost valuable time. This time there was no hesitation. A smooth final corner, a committed outside finish. And after hundreds of failed attempts, it was enough. On March 23rd, 2023, Hyku reclaimed the world record with a time of 39.04 seconds, 600ths faster than ThomVak. ThomVak's response took almost 3 months. The first half of the run was actually slower than Hyku's pace, but in the second half, ThomVak's driving paid off. An 11 km/h advantage after the tight hairpin grew to nearly 20 km by the following corner. From that point on, the result was inevitable. Even without using the outside finish strategy, ThomVak became the first runner to break the 39-second barrier, setting an incredible time of 38.9 seconds, a record that would stand for almost 2 years. Airwreckgaming, a well-known sim racer with years of experience under his belt, joined the scene and immediately set his sights on the records many considered untouchable. Among them, ThomVak's time on Asphalt Hillclimb stood out as the biggest challenge. He started with Hyku's setup as a base, but refined it further, cutting fuel for weight reduction and adjusting the suspension to eliminate small but persistent drifts that affected stability at high speed. The setup was fast and agile, but Aiwreck quickly noticed a different problem. While his driving was pretty much on point, finish is where he lost time. The outside line that others used didn't feel optimal, and the inside line was not great either. So he started experimenting with something unusual: the exact middle. The BeamNG finish checkpoint is surprisingly wide, almost circular in shape. Aiwreck discovered that by aiming directly between the traditional inside and outside lines, you could clip the finish, while at the same time maintaining the advantage of higher exit speed. It worked wonders, and in early 2025 he set a new record: 38.833 seconds, just 63 thousandths faster than ThomVak's time. That could have been it. A near-perfect final solution to the problem. Maybe even cleaner runs or further refinement to the Scintilla setups could have pushed the time slightly lower. But on the horizon, something entirely different was appearing. A new vehicle was beginning to dominate trials across the game. The JATO D series. And if anyone understood what that meant, it was the runner most responsible for the JATO revolution. Vulp, the philosopher.
At the time, the JATO revolution was at its peak. People were throwing JATO at everything and seeing what worked. The D series was the vehicle of choice, since it was the lightest JATO-capable vehicle and had the best handling. That did leave us with less fuel, only 12 seconds worth. Most had considered the hill climb to not be possible with JATO. Too many checkpoints, and nowhere to take advantage of JATO's absurd power. But I noticed that if you take the track in reverse, there was a cliff you could use as a ramp. But even then, you would have to fly through 2 checkpoints to finish. The launch was horrible in terms of consistency. Once I had the idea, I knew it was possible. So I spent 2 days trying and experimenting. Eventually I got it. This was not the most impressive or flashy JATO shortcut, but it might just be the hardest.
In the end, the run came out to 37.9 seconds, nearly a full second faster than the previous record, and the first run to break the 38-second barrier. Vulp had proven it was possible. Now came the hard part – optimization. In the next 2 months alone, runners would remove another full second from the record through new setups, cleaner driving, and thousands of attempts. Yet JATO still had obstacles to overcome. The downhill section was difficult. The track's brakes were nowhere near Scintilla's level, and the 2 downhill hairpins remained a constant problem. But unlike conventional cars, JATO had its own solution. With a single press of a button, runners could rotate the track almost instantly. The rocket effectively became the steering, the throttle, and the brakes all at once. Still, there was a problem of RNG. The last 5 seconds of driving, jump, and even flight were considered completely random. And this is why when Airwreckgaming decided to revisit the route, most runners told him the same thing. This is probably unbeatable. To prove them wrong, he launched a stream and got to work. For hours he pushed attempt after attempt. Eventually, with a jump that looked closer to luck than control, he finally claimed the record.
I don't know. It's over.
But according to Aiwreck, this wasn't RNG. Once you get a decent run, you quickly get a lot more quick finishes in. To prove it, he returned just 45 minutes later with a new run that was nearly a full second faster than Vulp's original record. What looked like a near-perfect shortcut only a month earlier suddenly had a room for massive improvement. The JATO era was only getting started.
Let's go!
It took an entire year before Vulp returned to Asphalt Hillclimb, and when he did, he brought a completely new version of the infamous JATO D series. The goal was simple: make it lighter, much lighter. The result pushed the limits of control. Stability and aerodynamics were heavily compromised, and even basic handling became unpredictable at best. It took hours just to adapt to the new setup, and even then, the track never felt good to drive. Every corner was practically a gamble, with constant corrections just to keep it from spinning out or bending an axle. But the trade-off was additional speed, both on the ground and in the air. On March 8, 2026, Vulp crossed the line in 35.1 seconds. Another massive leap forward, all thanks to the new crazy JATO variant. But then, Aiwreck got this run. That was the epitome of the JATO on Asphalt Hillclimb. First half was clean, no bumps, no hits and no fuel loss. JATO was used almost constantly to keep the speed and rotate the vehicle in ways impossible for normal cars. But the real difference came in the second half, the flight. Aiwreck got an exceptionally clean launch, using every little bit of space, including off-road filled with rocks. This pushed the truck to nearly 290 km per hour before takeoff. A few small boosts in the air kept the momentum alive, and moments later he landed inside the finish zone. This was truly historic result. The first sub-35, the first sub-34. A time of 33.998 seconds, more than 1.1 seconds faster than Vulp's previous record. And so, the pursuit ended for now. 33.998 run. But all of this was not about the time itself, or even how broken some vehicle setups can be. In the end, it was about an impossible challenge. Looking back at these runs, it's hard not to be impressed. Behind them, hundreds of hours of dedication from those who look at a seemingly untouchable barrier and realize that this so-called barrier is just another small obstacle on a path to perfection. In the end, every runner, every new vehicle, and every single attempt was made to answer the question, how far? And while the final time is currently 33.998, this is not the end. The race for the top is never truly over. It only pauses, waiting for the next discovery, waiting for the next impossible run. Thank you for watching. Special thanks to all the runners who helped me with this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. I've been Molten Metal Mayhem, and I'll see you next time.